These are 1 inch thick, high density foam boards that I bought from the big box store. I've seen shower panels built from MDF boards and high density foam boards. The reason I decided to go with the foam board instead of the MDF is because of the weight, and the foam board will resist rotting with moisture. Be careful when you're using a table saw to cut this foam. The foam will catch on the blade and kick back rather easily. Here I'm cutting a beveled edge on the panels that go toward the door or the entrance of the shower. A piece of foam against the wall is to remind me of the overlap in the panels so that everything gets cut correctly and fits in the end. I did manage to get the holes cut in the correct spot the first time. I've got some 40 grit sandpaper here, and this takes care of any rough edges that were left by the table saw or when I was cutting it with the razor blade. When I was fitting all these panels together, I made sure there was an 1/8 inch gap all the way around the panels to account for the epoxy. I did use MDF fiberboard for the tops of the walls so that I had something solid to attach the glass brackets to. And I made sure the tops of the walls were still sloped so that any water would drain into the shower. I use super clear tabletop epoxy on these panels, and I'll be sure to leave a link to it in the description. So all the smaller panels for the shower are done. Well, with the first coat, the first process of making these panels. It didn't go exactly to plan. It kind of failed on me a little bit in one area, and that area being the edge. Now, I've got some experience with fiberglass cloth and fiberglass mat with fiberglass resin in the past. I've done quite a bit of fiberglass work, and I know that the fiberglass, this is cloth, looks more like carbon fiber. The mat has the strands that kind of go everywhere. It doesn't have a rhyme or reason to it really. It's just kind of looks like a mess. So the mat is not going to want to wrap an edge hardly at all. It doesn't like to go around a corner. The cloth will go around a corner depending on how sharp the corner is and how thick the cloth is. So I knew I wanted a nice thick cloth to the top, but I needed a thin cloth to go over the 90-degree bends like on this edge over here. Now this beveled edge turned out all right. It worked out on both the beveled edges on both these larger panels out of the set I just did. That's where you're walking into the shower, and I believe it's a 23 or a 26 degree bevel. So I've got a couple little air bubbles in the very corner, and that's what'll happen when you try and wrap an edge too tight. When the mesh doesn't want to wrap it, it will leave an air bubble right there in the corner, and that'll be a weak point. So knowing that it doesn't want to wrap that corner, I went with a lighter weight fabric, and I was going to put 2 layers on. And I did put 2 layers on. The problem being is that it still didn't wrap the corner on the 90s. It wouldn't wrap around that corner without having an air bubble. And when I went to put the second layer of 4-ounce cloth on, it just wanted to stick everywhere, and it was a real pain in the butt to get all the ripples out of it. I had to really work at it to get all the ripples out. If I had to do it over again, I would get like an 8 or a 10 ounce cloth and I would cut it to go right up to the edge. I would take the epoxy resin, go right over the whole thing, make sure it's saturated, make sure it's stuck down to the foam, and then do the edges later, reinforce the edges later, which is what I'm gonna have to do anyways. I'm gonna have to cut out little strips and stand these up on end, and fiberglass, or not fiberglass. You can't use fiberglass on this purple foam, by the way. You have to use epoxy. Fiberglass resin will eat through this foam, and all you'll have left is a purple mess of fiberglass. So unfortunately, it did not work out the way I had pictured it in my head, and I'll have a little bit more work to do in grinding the edges off, making them nice and smooth, and then going back over them with some matting, but it'll get done. You can also see some of these areas where the cloth is kind of sticking up. It's made like a ridge. It's not perfectly flat. I'm not worried about those. This is only the first coat, the first step in the process. We're gonna sand this down. We've got primer and paint to put on this, and then a flood coat of epoxy with mica powder in it, and then possibly another flood coat of clear epoxy over top of that. So this is gonna be smooth in the end. This is just the first step in the process. For those of you that are wondering how strong this is my test piece. I've got 2 layers of fiberglass cloth with epoxy resin over the whole thing. This is just epoxy resin over here. Now, I've already played with it a little bit. You can kind of see some indentations. Before we get to that, this is regular purple foam, nothing to it. Now, this doesn't have any of the little spliced areas like these big panels. They'll have little spliced areas where you can snap it really easily. I think they're on a 2-foot center and a 4-foot center. So this doesn't have any weak points in it. It's fairly sturdy, but you can stick your thumb in it pretty easily. Not too bad. Break it pretty easy. So this is my panel. This is just resin right here. And this is 24 hours cured. So you can see it's still dense. You can kind of see if I can get the light on there, see the dents that'll put in there. But you can't stick your thumb through it. Now over where there's mat, 2 layers of mat, you can still dent it just a little bit. Hopefully you guys can see that. There's little dents there. So it's still, you'll get little imperfections in it if you really abuse it. As far as how strong it is, you can bend it, but it won't snap off. It's not going anywhere. Well, maybe it is. See, there we go. We can break it. Takes quite a bit though. It's not that weak. Now, with 2 layers of 4-ounce cloth. That's not going anywhere. I can bend the foam on the back side, which does leave a little bit of a bend on the front side, but it's not going anywhere. Take a hammer to it. See, you can put a hammer through it. That'll work. And you can peel it up. But it sticks to that foam pretty good. It's peeling foam up, so the adhesion is very good. Now I still have the 2 larger panels in the shower to do. Now the smaller of the larger 2, I can do in the studio where we have climate control. The larger panel is 6 foot by 7 foot, roughly, give or take an inch or 2. That won't fit in the studio. The studio is only 8 foot wide. I've got to be able to walk around, put fiberglass cloth down, resin, the whole bit. It's not going to fit in there. Now you want your epoxy to be 75 degrees from what my experience with epoxy. And it's kind of the same as what you'll read in the internet. I warm up my epoxy with hot water, put the jugs in hot water, warm them up, So they're 75 to 80 degrees. I have everything set up in my studio that has climate control at 75 degrees. I do all my work and I leave it at 75 degrees for the first 24 hours. But since the larger panel won't fit in there, and well, it's at the most of 60 degrees in here right now, it's a little chilly. I mean, the most of 60 degrees in here. That's in the hottest part of the day. So I can't do it out here. I've got to do that larger panel in the house. Now, epoxy resin doesn't have a whole lot of VOCs. It doesn't really put off too much of a smell, but it still puts off a smell that you're not happy to be around, I guess, and depending on the person. I wouldn't be too happy to be around epoxy smell all day. But that panel is going to have to get done inside the house because it's not scheduled in the weather forecast for it to get up to 75 degrees for, well, the extended forecast of 10 days doesn't show 75 degrees. It shows like 58 degrees. I won't make you sit through all the little things I'm going to do to all these panels. The other panels are going to get done to this point, and then we'll pick up in the next video of the shower build, the next video in the shower build series with the next step that we have to do on these panels. Until next time, guys, go make something.